Busy froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Everyone at the Thanksgiving table stared at her, waiting, judging, whispering. Her mother's voice echoed again, too loud to ignore. Your sister's wedding was beautiful. So, Busy, when's yours? Busy swallowed hard. She wasn't supposed to answer the truth. No one at that table deserved it. But she whispered it anyway, soft, steady, and devastating. I already had mine. The room fell silent, because what they didn't know was that her wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a secret she had buried to stay alive. Busy sat quietly at the long dining table, surrounded by relatives who only saw what they wanted to see. They laughed, gossiped, and praised everything except her. Her mother kept talking about Lami's wedding again. The big hall, the expensive dress, the perfect photos. Everyone smiled and nodded proudly, as if Lami's life was the only one worth celebrating. Busy kept her eyes on her plate, trying to stay small, trying not to feel the familiar sting in her chest. Then her mother turned to her with a bright, sharp smile. So Busy, when is your own wedding? The table went silent. Every face turned toward her, waiting to hear how far behind she was, how incomplete her life was compared to her sister's. Busy felt her heart beating too fast. She wasn't ready to say anything. She didn't want to explain her life to people who never cared to ask, but something inside her refused to stay quiet this time. She lifted her head slowly and looked at her mother. The words came out soft, steady, almost too calm. I already had mine. For a moment no one moved. Forks dropped onto plates. Someone gasped. Her mother's smile disappeared completely, replaced with confusion and shock. The relatives stared at her like she had spoken a forbidden secret. They had always seen her as the quiet daughter, the simple one, the one who never talked back, never made noise, never caused trouble. They never imagined she had a life outside. What they chose to notice. They never imagined she carried a story heavier than any of them could understand. Busy felt the room freeze around her, but she didn't look away. For the first time, she let them see something real, something they had ignored for years. And as she sat there, watching their reactions, she realized she wasn't afraid anymore. Her truth was out, and whether they understood it or not, she was done hiding. 2 years before that Thanksgiving dinner, Busy stood in a tiny courthouse room with cold white walls and a single wooden desk. There was no wedding dress, no music, no smiling relatives waiting outside. It was just her, Adara, and a clerk who read the vows in a flat voice. Busy told herself it didn't matter. She believed love didn't need crowds or celebration. She believed a simple beginning could still lead to a beautiful life. When Adara held her hands and promised to love her, protect her, and give her a joyful future, she felt safe. She thought she had made the right choice, even if nobody knew. She thought keeping it private would protect her peace. But everything changed faster than she expected. In the first few weeks, Adara was gentle, always checking on her, always wanting to be close. She thought it was affection. She thought it meant he cared. Then slowly, his attention turned into control. He started taking her phone to make sure she wasn't talking to anyone suspicious. He questioned every message, every missed call, every friend's name. He chose what she should wear, telling her some clothes were too bright, too loose, or too attracting. At first, she argued softly, tried to explain, tried to laugh it off. But his face would harden, his voice would drop, and he would accuse her of disrespecting him. He didn't want her visiting her friends anymore. He didn't want her going anywhere without him. When she told him she wanted to see her family, he said they didn't appreciate her anyway. He told her she didn't need anyone but him. Busy didn't notice how small her world had become until one day she realized the only number she dialed was his. The only place she went was their apartment. The only voice she heard was his. Every day felt heavier, like a weight pressing on her chest. But she kept hoping that the man she married, the one who held her hands in that quiet courthouse, would come back. She tried to be patient. She tried to understand his moods. She told herself he was stressed, tired, or misunderstood. She told herself love required sacrifice, but inside, a small, quiet fear was growing. She didn't recognize herself anymore. She didn't laugh the way she used to. She didn't speak freely. She moved carefully, choosing her words, measuring her steps, hoping to keep peace in the house. Some nights she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how something that started so softly could turn into something that hurt so deeply. Yet she stayed. Not because she was weak, but because she still believed in the promise he made. She believed there was a chance he might change. She believed love could fix things. But the man she hoped for was gone. And the one standing in front of her was someone she no longer knew. It happened on a quiet evening. One of those nights when Beezy hoped things would finally be normal. Otara came home looking stressed, moving around the house with quick, sharp steps. He asked for his car key, and when she said she hadn't seen it, his face changed instantly. It was such a small thing, something that could happen to anyone, but to him it became a reason to explode. He turned the living room upside down, shouting, accusing her of hiding it, blaming her for everything going wrong in his life. Beezy stood frozen, confused, trying to explain, but he didn't want to hear anything. When he couldn't find the key, he turned his anger toward her. His voice grew louder, his words sharper, and suddenly the space between them felt dangerous. She backed into a corner, feeling smaller with every second. She had never seen him like that. His anger felt bigger than the room, filling every corner, choking the air. When he finally stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook, Beezy stayed there on the floor trembling. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her heart felt like it was breaking inside her chest. She had believed love meant patience, compromise, and understanding. But sitting in that dark corner, hugging her knees, she knew the truth. This wasn't love. This wasn't protection. This wasn't a marriage. It was a cage she had walked into with her eyes closed, trusting someone who didn't deserve her trust. She felt humiliated, like she had lost herself somewhere along the way. She felt terrified because the man she married wasn't just controlling. He was becoming dangerous. For the first time since the wedding, she thought seriously about leaving. The idea scared her, but staying scared her even more. She whispered to herself that she needed to go before things got worse, but as the thought formed, another fear rose in her chest. She had nowhere to run. Her family never saw her as someone who needed help. They always brushed away her feelings, telling her she was overreacting or too emotional. If she told them about the marriage and what happened tonight, she knew exactly what they would say. They would blame her. They would say she provoked him. They would say she failed. So she sat there in the darkness, tears rolling down her cheeks, feeling completely alone. She didn't know how to escape, but she knew she couldn't keep living this way. Something had to change, even if she had to find the strength herself. That night became the moment she realized she needed to save her own life, because no one else was going to do it for her. After that terrible night, something inside Beezy changed. She realized she couldn't wait for anyone to save her. She had to save herself. But leaving Otara wasn't simple. He watched everything she did, questioned every small move, and controlled every part of her day. So she started her escape plan quietly, carefully, like someone walking on broken glass. She began by hiding tiny amounts of money. She never took too much at once. Only small notes that wouldn't be noticed. She rolled them tightly and pushed them into an empty shampoo bottle, the kind no one ever checked. Every time she added a little more, her hands shook, but her hope grew. It was the only secret she had left. Next, she packed a bag. Not a big one. Just a small backpack she slid under the bed where Otara never bothered to look. Inside it she placed 2 shirts, 1 trouser, a worn scarf, and the only pair of comfortable shoes she owned. She folded everything neatly, praying he would never find it. Every night she went to bed knowing that one bag was her whole future. She memorized taxi routes while pretending to take evening walks to clear her head. She watched buses pass by and counted how long they stopped at the corner. She memorized back roads, shortcuts, and quiet alleys. She learned where the streetlights flickered, where people gathered, and where she could disappear without being noticed. She never wrote anything down. She kept everything in her mind, repeating it silently like a prayer. When Otara told her he would be away for a weekend trip, she knew this was her only chance. Her heart pounded for hours, afraid he might change his mind or return early. She waited until the door shut behind him, then until she heard the car drive away. Only then did she move. She grabbed the shampoo bottle, the hidden bag, and walked to the door with shaking legs. She didn't even stop to put on shoes. She stepped outside barefoot, the cold ground burning her feet, but she didn't care. She ran, first slowly, then faster, then as fast as her breath allowed. She ran past neighbors' houses, past closed shops, past street dogs resting under cars. Her hair flew behind her, and her lungs ached, but she didn't stop until she reached the main road. At the bus station, she finally slipped her shoes on and stood in line, still breathing hard. When she handed money to the conductor, her hands trembled so much he asked if she was cold. She shook her head. She wasn't cold. She was awake, fully awake, for the first time in years. The bus door closed behind her, and for the first time since her marriage, she felt a tiny spark of freedom. She didn't know what waited for her on the other side of the city, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going back. Busy reached the far side of the city with nothing but her small bag, and the hope that she could start again. She found a tiny room for rent behind an old wooden house. The walls were cracked, the paint was peeling, and the floor creaked with every step, but it was hers. There was only one small window, and when she opened it, a little breeze entered the room like a quiet welcome. She sat on the thin mattress and felt something she had not felt in years, space to breathe. There was no shouting, no footsteps to fear, no eyes watching her every move. Just silence. Safe, simple silence. The next morning, she walked around looking for work. She didn't have big dreams at that moment. She only needed enough money to survive and stay hidden. That's how she found Mama Udo's tailoring shop. It was small, filled with colorful fabrics and old sewing machines, and it smelled like cloth and warm tea. Mama Udo, an elderly widow with soft eyes and gentle hands, looked at Busy and immediately sensed something quiet and broken in her. She didn't ask too many questions. She just smiled and said, "If you can thread a needle, you can work here." Busy learned quickly. She swept the floors, helped customers choose fabrics, and stitched simple clothes. Her hands moved slowly at first, still shaking from everything she had escaped, but day by day, they grew steadier. Mama Udo gave her lunch, shared stories, and treated her like a human being, something Busy had forgotten how that felt. For the first time in a long time, she felt warmth without fear. But even as she tried to build a peaceful life, she kept her past tucked deep inside her chest, like a bruise she didn't want anyone to touch. She told no one she was married. She told no one she had run away. She kept her face calm, her voice soft, and her secrets hidden. It was easier that way. Safer. Then the calls started. At first one. Then another. Then many. Adara's name flashed across her phone again and again. She blocked him, but he used new numbers. His messages filled the screen. Questions, demands, angry words. He told her to come home. He told her she was embarrassing him. He told her she had no right to leave. Each message made her chest tighten, but she didn't respond. She refused to go back to that cage. When silence didn't work, Adara changed his tactics. He began calling her family. He contacted her parents, asking where she was. He told them she had run away like a child. He pretended to be worried, pretending to be the good husband she knew he wasn't. Busy's heart filled with fear again. She knew her family never truly understood her. She knew if Adara reached them, everything she had rebuilt could collapse. And as she sat by her small window, watching the sky turn dark, she realized that escaping him once didn't mean he was gone. Her new life was fragile, and he was already trying to break it. Busy knew exactly why she couldn't let her family know where she was or what she had been through. Growing up, she had learned to keep her feelings to herself, because no one in her house ever took them seriously. Her parents adored Lami, the younger sister, the beautiful one, the one who always said the right things and made the family look perfect. Lami could do no wrong. Every achievement she made was celebrated loudly. Every mistake she made was forgiven quietly. But Busy was different. Whenever she tried to express sadness or fear, her parents brushed her off. They told her she was too sensitive, like her emotions were a weakness. If she cried, they called her dramatic. If she disagreed, they said she was childish. Over time, Busy learned that her voice didn't matter in that house. Nobody asked how she was doing. Nobody checked on her dreams, her stress, or her plans. They assumed she was fine because she stayed quiet. And Busy stayed quiet because she was tired of being ignored. So when her marriage started breaking her from the inside, she knew her family would not be the place to run. She imagined telling them what Adara had done. She imagined explaining how control slowly became fear, how fear became pain, and how pain pushed her to escape. But in every version of that conversation, she saw the same outcome. Her mother would sigh and say she should try harder. Her father would blame her for failing in marriage. They would never believe she left for her own safety. They would think she had embarrassed them. That fear kept her silent. She didn't call them the night she ran. She didn't send a message when she reached her new room. She didn't tell Lamy, even though a part of her wished her sister would somehow understand. Instead, she built a new life on her own, far from the people who had taught her to hide her heart. When the day came to file for divorce, she went alone. She stood in a quiet courthouse hallway with papers in her hands, wearing a simple dress and holding her breath. Signing those forms felt heavy, but freeing. The clerk asked if she had anyone waiting with her. She shook her head. It was just her. She didn't call anyone afterward. She walked out of the courthouse with the same silence she had carried for years. She kept everything hidden, not because she wanted to, but because she knew the truth. The people she should have trusted were the ones who made her feel the most invisible. The room went silent after Beezy's quiet confession. Her mother's smile disappeared, and then with a sudden burst of anger, she slammed her palm on the table. Plates rattled. Everyone stared. "What do you mean you had a wedding?" she demanded, her voice sharp and shocked, as if Beezy had just announced something impossible. All the relatives leaned forward, waiting for Beezy to shrink, to take back her words, to apologize for causing discomfort. But she didn't shrink this time. Beezy lifted her head slowly, feeling a strange calm settle over her. For years she had swallowed her pain, pretended everything was fine, and carried her secrets alone. But now, sitting at this table where she had always been the quiet, overlooked daughter, she felt something different, strength. She sat straighter, folded her hands, and prepared to speak the truth she had buried deep inside her. She started at the beginning. She told them about the small courthouse ceremony, how she stood beside Otara with no family present, thinking love was enough. She explained how she believed the promises he made, how she truly wanted to build a future with him. No one moved. No one interrupted. For once, the room was listening to her. Then she spoke about how everything changed, slowly at first, then suddenly. She explained how he controlled her, how he checked her phone, questioned every friend, every plan, every choice. She told them about the fear she lived with, the night that shattered everything, and the moment she knew she had to run. Her voice didn't shake. It was soft but steady, the voice of someone who had lived through something heavy and survived. As she spoke, she noticed the way her family reacted. Some lowered their eyes. Some shifted in their seats as if her words were too uncomfortable to hear. Her mother's face tightened with disbelief, like she couldn't understand how her daughter could have lived a whole life without her knowing. And her father, his expression hardened. Not with concern. Not clenched, his eyes narrowed, and he pressed his lips together. To him, this wasn't about Beezy's pain. It was about the image of the perfect family he liked to present to others. Beezy saw it clearly now. She realized they weren't shocked because she suffered. They were shocked because her truth made them look bad. Her story cracked the picture-perfect mask they had worn for years. The one where Lamy was the shining daughter and Beezy was the quiet, uncomplicated one. And as she sat there, sharing everything she had once been afraid to say, she understood something important. She wasn't breaking the family image. The truth was, and the truth had lived inside her for too long to stay hidden any longer. Lamy shocks everyone the moment she stands up. All her life, she has been the golden child, the one their parents praised, protected, and put above Beezy. Everyone at the table expects her to laugh or make a sarcastic comment, because that is what she usually does when Beezy speaks. But today something in her face is different. Her eyes slowly fill with tears as she listens to her sister's voice shake, while describing everything she went through alone. Beezy doesn't even notice at first. She is still staring at her hands, still scared that one wrong word will bring another lecture or insult. Then Lamy pushes her chair back and walks around the table. The room goes silent. Even the clinking of cutlery stops. She kneels beside Beezy and wraps her arms around her tightly. The hug is soft, warm, and full of regret. Beezy's eyes widen in shock. No one in the family has hugged her like this in years. Not when she cried. Not when she left home. Not when she begged them to listen. But Lamy is holding her like someone who finally understands. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lamy whispers. "You went through all that alone?" Her voice cracks and everyone freezes, unsure how to react. Their mother, who always expects Lamy to side with her, looks completely stunned. She blinks hard. Her mouth opening and closing like she wants to speak, but cannot find the right words. She did not expect her favorite daughter to choose busy, not today, not ever. Their father's expression hardens instantly. He does not like scenes. He does not like emotions. And he definitely does not like anyone breaking the perfect family picture he tries to protect. His jaw tightens, not with understanding, but with irritation. But Lami doesn't care. She pulls back from the hug and wipes her eyes. Her voice is stronger now, clearer, no longer the soft voice she uses to keep the peace. She looks at their parents like she is seeing them clearly for the first time. If anyone should apologize, she says slowly, it's not busy. The words hit the table like a shockwave. Her mother gasps. Her father leans back, annoyed that his authority is being challenged. But Lami doesn't stop. She stands beside Busy, like a wall of protection her sister never had. For the first time in her life, she chooses fairness over being the favorite. The room grows tense, heavy, and uncomfortable, but Lami doesn't blink. She stays right beside Busy, letting everyone know that the old family rules are breaking. For once, Busy is no longer standing alone. The moment Busy finishes speaking, her parents begin to do what they always do. They twist her words. They try to make her pain seem small. Her mother leans back and says Busy is exaggerating, that things were never as bad as she is describing. Her father says she should have spoken earlier if she wanted help. They blame her choices. They say she should have known better. They speak like her suffering is something she created, something she deserved. It is the same pattern she has seen all her life. Her feelings ignored, her voice pushed aside, her truth treated like an inconvenience. But this time Busy sits still. She does not shrink. She does not argue. She does not try to convince them to understand. She simply listens to their excuses until they run out of words. Then she lifts her head, and her voice is calm, steady, and stronger than before. I didn't come here to be explained away, she says. I came because I'm tired of being invisible. Her parents freeze. They don't know how to respond to this version of Busy. She is not crying. She is not begging. She is simply done. And that scares them more than any argument ever could. Busy pushes her chair back quietly. She stands up and smooths her clothes, her movements slow but firm. She knows she has said everything she needed to say. She knows staying longer will only pull her back into the same old pain. So she turns toward the door, ready to walk out of the house that never felt like home. For a second, the room is silent. No one tries to stop her. Maybe they think she will change her mind like she used to. Maybe they think she will sit back down if they stay quiet long enough. But then something unexpected happens. A hand reaches for hers. Busy turns, and it is Lami. Her sister's eyes are serious, not confused, not frightened, just full of a quiet decision. I'm coming with you, Lami says. The whole table goes still. Their mother looks like the floor has disappeared under her feet. Their father's face tightens in disbelief. They never expected Lami, the obedient one, the favorite one, to break the family line. But Lami doesn't let go of Busy's hand. She squeezes it, as if telling her, you don't have to face life alone anymore. And for the first time in many years, Busy doesn't walk away alone. She walks out with someone beside her. Someone who finally sees her, believes her, and chooses her. Busy found a small apartment with a balcony that looked out over a busy street. The walls were plain, and the furniture was simple, but for the first time in her life, everything felt hers. She could open the windows and hear life moving outside without fear. No one was controlling her, no one was questioning her, and no one was judging her. She was finally free to breathe, to live, to be herself. Lami visited often. Together they unpacked boxes, arranged little decorations, and laughed over silly things that had been forgotten for years. Sometimes they sat side by side, sewing fabrics, sharing ideas, and talking about dreams that nobody had asked them about before. It felt like they had returned to the innocence of childhood, where the world seemed simple and love was never conditional. Each visit made Busy feel stronger, lighter, more alive. She realized that family didn't have to mean the people who ignored you. It could be the ones who chose to stand with you. Busy also started her small sewing business from the apartment. At first, she only made simple repairs, but word spread quickly. People came to her for custom work, and soon her skills began to bring in enough income to feel independent. Each completed dress, each happy customer, was a small victory. With every stitch she sewed, Her confidence grew. She was building something of her own. Something she could be proud of without asking anyone for permission or approval. One evening, after finishing a long day of work, Beezy sat on her balcony with a warm cup of tea. The city lights flickered below, the sounds of traffic and voices blending into a comforting hum. She took a slow sip, closing her eyes for a moment, and whispered a truth that once felt impossible to admit. I didn't lose a family. I finally found who actually cared. She realized that her past no longer defined her. The pain, the fear, the loneliness, they were memories, not chains. What mattered now was her courage, her choices, and the life she had carved out with her own hands. She had walked away from a marriage that suffocated her, from a family that never understood her, and yet she had not been destroyed. Instead, she had grown, healed, and discovered who truly mattered. And as she watched the night sky stretch over the city, she smiled softly, understanding something she never had before. Sometimes, the most powerful weddings are not the grand ceremonies with music and applause. Sometimes, the most powerful weddings are the ones where you walk away, choosing freedom, self-respect, and peace. That was her wedding. That was her triumph. That was the life she had built without needing anyone's approval.